Hello, everyone. It's Kathleen Osborne with you again, and I have a wonderful guest. It's Claire DeLim. She's just joined the Transcendent Authors, and she's got such a varied and incredible background. I would love for her to tell you about herself. Go ahead, Claire.
Oh, wow. I will give you the keyframes. I am new to the White Mountains. And prior to that, I'd been living in California, in Los Angeles, and also San Francisco. And my husband and I moved out here over a year ago because we were ready to move on from that life, that lifestyle, that energy. We were in the film business. My husband was a visual effects artist and an animator, and I was a writer producer. And it was time to, because the business was changing, the type of work we wanted to do was changing. And what I mean by that is the type of stories we wanted to tell. Fundamentally, that's what it is. The stories we wanted to tell were also not aligned with what the market was bearing in Hollywood. So we came to that age where we thought we need to make some changes that were more in line with our what we were thinking and things that matter to us. And so we moved. And fundamentally, I think of myself when it comes to being a creative person or at least where I'm at right now, is writing from the heart. And I've said this to many people recently, that when you write for the market, you forget what it is to write from the heart. And
Yes.
now I'm writing from the heart. And as I told Kathleen and I've told others, that I'm writing short stories, which I never used to read because I couldn't get into it. Because they were too short. I would never get into it. I always felt like if I'd read a New Yorker piece, it always seemed to miss the third act and it would just abruptly end and I'd be left hanging. And so I could never get into the rhythm of a short story. But lately I really got into reading Ted Chiang, and he's a phenomenal science fiction slash philosophical slash spiritual writer.
Oh,
And I read his stories and I admire his work, and I was feeling a groove with him. And I thought I got to try this. And I stopped writing for several years because I really had to just get involved with re in touch with my intuition. I was still writing corporate work. I was still writing marketing
oh, you froze.
materials because I had we get marketing corporate side gigs. And I also was, working with other authors and students. And so I was still involved in the creative process and really helping other people tell their stories, which is so exciting to me when they start to tap into their things that are important to them that they want to write about, as opposed to, again, I'm going to keep referring to the market out there. So after several years of just puttering around and kicking around ideas, and I was really focusing on drawing, trying to work another part of my creativity, that I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a go. And I enjoyed it. And I wrote a couple short stories. It was really satisfying. And here I am. And fortunately, moved to a place where there's a writers group, and I'm already meeting some really creative, interesting people. And I look forward to continuing along this path. So hopefully that was a quick answer.
Well, I really enjoyed that answer, but I want to know a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
Okay. What brought you into writing? Where did
Mm.
you start?
Well, that is an easy one. My father is a romantic poet, scholar, and a writer. And my father's from the Philippines, and he's written a number of novels, in the Philippines, and he was a professor for years and years. So I guess it was always in my DNA. And
Mhm.
from a young age, I was writing. He'd be critiquing my work. I'd be telling stories. So that and a huge reader. I'm an only child, so if I'm not out
Ah,
socializing and playing sports, I'm sucking up books. And fortunately, my father was really encouraging, And we would at the dinner table, we'd talk about books, we'd talk about writing, and we'd talk about themes. And so I had that really, really early on. And he kept a journal. He still keeps a journal. He's now in his late 80s. And I was keeping a journal too for many, many years. When we moved, there's a big old box. And a part of me thought I should just throw these away. I'd flip through them and they'd just be ridiculous, but great. So I didn't throw them away. I have them. I have the box.
Yes, because I'm so glad you didn't throw them away. We had one gal that just left. Her name, her pen name was La Michelle W, or I have a hard time with French. And she has her mother's journals, and she's writing a memoir
Mm,
on that. So who knows? It might be somebody that discovers them, somebody in the family
mhm,
that wants to write about you because of what you have done for
mm,
your family. Because that's one of the reasons I write. I want something for my family, some kind of non-tangible and tangible inheritance,
mhm,
because they have the gifts are in them, in their DNA. I started a business with designer dogs. I had failed in sewing, believe it or not. And in a year, I was getting comments from master seamstresses and master tailors about how good my sewing was. And I told my cousin, and she said, "Well, don't you know? Our whole line on mother's side was seamstresses, master
mm,
seamstresses.
mm,
So it flowed through the blood. So what you have came from your father. And what you pass down is going to be a rich heritage, incredible heritage. Now, tell me how you got into films.
films. Let's see. Also, my parents, they were huge movie buffs, and there's a big joke amongst our family, which is my that I my mother was pregnant with me when she and my father saw Psycho. And
Oh,
during the shower scene, apparently I was kicking like crazy. So I said, see, even then I'm already getting traumatized by Hitchcock in utero. And it has stuck with me ever since. So they were huge movie fans. They probably took me to every inappropriate movie in the late 60s and the 70s. The no babysitters, I was seeing all sorts of things that right now, if I knew someone was taking their child to that movie at that age, I think, oh, I need to call social services. There's something wrong here with why you're taking them to that movie. But I saw it all. And so again, a huge, very rich background in film because I saw it at such a young age. And as I progressed as an adult and in my education, that progressed as well. So it was as if writing and film were on parallel tracks. And then when I got out of college, when I graduated from college, then I knew I just wanted to make movies. And so I went to UCLA Film School and got my MFA there. And then that was its own track. And it's been an interesting ride because
mhm.
there's filmmaking and then there's movie making. And it hasn't been easy. There was a lot of struggles because I really wanted to be a producer and a director and made many shorts and I worked corporate. I worked when I lived in San Francisco for about 10 years. I did a lot of corporate producing. So that is its own thing
Oh, yes.
for drug companies, for utility companies, all these brands that you hear of all the time. And I would be behind the scenes making videos to promote their products and whatnot. So that it's still storytelling. It may
Mm-hmm.
be corporate, you're selling a drug,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still storytelling. So a lot of the nuts and bolts aspect of filmmaking and production and producing, I got on that job. And then eventually I thought, I can't do this work anymore. And I need to go back to Los Angeles and try to make movies with a capital M.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back and slugged it out.
That's incredible. I know other people in the film industry, and it is not an easy one. The competitiveness, the um, I hate to say backstabbing, but it's all me, or I want to get in front of you. I've had friends that have had ideas stolen from them.
Mm.
Of course, you can't um, copyright an idea.
No, and this is what I tell my students, because along the way I also became a writing professor and a film professor, is it's going to sound glib, but ideas are a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got ideas. Between Kathleen and myself, we could probably come up with 100 just sitting here,
Oh
but no
yeah.
one wants to hear that. And I thought this too when I was first starting, that every idea was so precious, but it's ephemeral. It's the idea is one thing, but then building on it into a world and
Mm-hmm.
dynamics, that's what becomes precious.
Yes.
Not the little idea. I once had a friend when we were living in San Francisco, and the Bay Bridge would often get a lot of traffic during rush hour. And he called me up and he said, I've been sitting here in my office looking at the Bay Bridge, and I have an idea for something. Someone blows up the bridge and it's a bank heist, and the gold goes down and it goes the gold falls into the bay, and there's scuba divers there. And I said, uh-huh. And he said, well, what can we do with it? He says, what do you think? You want to work on it? I said, and I know you've got a premise. Who is everybody? I mean, it was just funny because I hear some version of that all the time, which is build. Because ideas are, as I said, ephemeral.
Yeah, and you can get them from everywhere and anywhere. Somebody asked me where I get my ideas, and I said anything. And I like to use this as a little, I don't know if you can see it clearly. Yeah.
Kathleen, hang on.
Oh my gosh. See, there's 3 stories here.
Oh, whoa.
Think about it. There's 3 stories. This is
wow.
And this is its protective shell, so it can fly from universe to universe. This is a planet that was a prison planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's encased to protect this. What the outer shell was meant for protection of the planet, but now it's killing the planet. So I saw that and I thought, oh, I gotta have
more.
That.
Yeah. The synchronicity here is just great.
Oh, I that's why I love writing. And let me ask you this. What appeals to you most about science fiction?
I have to think back to some of my favorite books. So the world building and then the metaphor. And I'm going to cite one of my favorites, which is Player of Games, Ian Banks. And it's a metaphor that is, and being able to take, instead of being on the nose with real life or contemporary life, creating this other world where you can make you could establish all the critiques and the positives and the negatives in a way that's just, you just haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. And when it gets fantastical in the way that science fiction, it just expands those themes even more. The other book that I read ages ago that I love is Altered Carbon by Richard Morgan. And he was being able to deal with consciousness and conscious, it's old news now, but he wrote it in such a way, being able to take consciousness and the transhumanisms, that's what they want to do. They want to upload their consciousness. So things like that, it's just pushing it to the edge of technology and in a whole other atmosphere. It's really quite It's remarkable, and it takes it out of the mundane. And I don't mean mundane as in boring, but the mundane that we live in, and also just extrapolating a future. And the one thing that that's really incredible to me about science fiction. So
I couldn't agree
that's just
more.
one of the things I love. There's so many.
I think I know I like science fiction because of the world building, because you get to create, and you know, in a sense, you're a god for all of these characters that you're writing about. And you can have them do anything. There is nothing they can't do. Whereas you know, in real life, you could never do anything like that. But over the years, people have read science fiction and created things that we never thought would happen. It's, you know, and we had electrical cars in the 1880s. Did you know that? And we had gas cars in the 1880s. But the gas went out. But it was also in dreams, in people's dreams, in people's books, our submarines. The thought of robotics, AI, Osmanoff wrote about all those years ago. And now we're seeing it. We're back on the moon again.
Yeah.
I don't think we should have ever left, but that's
that's you. The idea right now that I'm enthralled with is the simulation theory. And are we living in a simulation? And the woman who wrote Station 11, I just finished Mendel. She's got a name like St. John Mendel. And she I just finished The Sea of Tranquility, where she's talking not only about the space-time continuum, which is I also love. I mean, all the Terminator, I'm in. The person from the future has to come back. All that stuff I love. And I never get tired of it. But she did it in a really interesting way, at the same time dealt with the simulation theory, which is something that's fascinating and frightening. And I was just talking to my husband about it. I said, are we all living in Sims? We're all living in somebody's sim game. And that's really fascinating to me. And maybe and I've been thinking about writing something along those lines, but it's percolating in there somewhere.
Well, it's like I once worked with a woman at a church that I was the senior pastor's secretary. And she was very devout. She said, you know, nothing says that there wasn't, you can't say there wasn't dinosaurs, and it's not because of the bones. But how many times has God put man on this earth? He just said this last time that he was never going to use water again. So did he use it before? So when I look at that, and then I look at space, it's like, oh my gosh, why couldn't he have gone to another planet and done the same thing? There's no limits, nothing. And now I got to ask you this. Have you ever written anything else other than science fiction in your short stories?
I have. Well, if I'm going to count all the different genres of screenplays I've written. And so romantic comedy, there was a science fiction, an author named David Marusek, who is incredible. He did a book called Counting Heads, and then On This Rock, and he's done other things. He's from Alaska. And I had optioned his book and wrote a pilot and pitched it all around town. It cost way too much money, and I wasn't big enough to be able to get it off the ground. And thriller, a psychological thriller and mystery. I'm massive. Aside from science fiction, every British crime, those were the books that I grew up with. All crime books, starting with the Americans, Rex Stout, Ellery Queen, all those detectives, and then I went into the Dorothy Sayers and Agatha Christie and still going down that path. So for a while I was writing thrillers, and let's see, what else did I write? Thrillers. I'd done some comedies, but this is the interesting thing about, and probably what all your other authors or what any author experiences, is that particularly in Hollywood, you got to stick to a genre. Because if you can write, just because you can write a bunch of genres, you don't get known for writing any genre.
Yes.
So that was a problem for me, because I liked writing a bunch of genres and I could write them, but then toward, I figured that out, that I got to stick this one path. And so, yeah, lots of variation in the genre world, but now I seem to be focusing on, it is moving in toward literary fiction, but I'm very much exploring some of these things we're talking about. Again, Ted Chiang is kind of my role model at the moment, because he is mixing ancient civilization. That one story he has in Exhalation, which I believe is about building the Tower to Babylon. It is sci-fi mixed with religion, mixed with spiritual, mixed with, dare I say it, aliens. And all of that is, I'm reading a lot of books in that field, and then I know as stories are going to come out. Because I'm thoroughly obsessed with ancient civilizations and all that, and ancient tech. It's going to happen.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. I had lunch with a friend on Saturday, and that night she was going with some friends out to Bishop, and they were, Winslow. Sorry, Winslow, and they were going to go off road and look for aliens, alien watch time. And I'm like, call me when you get home. Now, I was going to ask you, why did you guys pick Snowflake to move to?
I'm looking over there at my husband. We initially wanted to, Oregon was our first pick, and Oregon, it didn't work out for a multitude of reasons. And then he just started doing the research about the weather and wanting to buy off-grid property because we wanted to build something. And he has more of the details. I kind of went along for the ride, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't live in an area too far away from any place and not near a flood zone. So those were my parameters.
I studied for 3 years. I did in-depth analysis to find this place. We had driven through it to see our son in Oklahoma, but and we were drawn to it. One of the wonderful things about this area you'll find is the kids stay. They don't. Some of them will move out, but they come back.
I've noticed that. My vet came back. An RN I met came back. It's really interesting how that is the case. Another big one was the aquifer. There's a big aquifer here, right? And it's not going to drain out like what's going on in Phoenix. So,
oh yeah, but at the same time, you need to be careful that you still are careful with your water, because an aquifer can run out, and we haven't been getting the snow.
Right.
So we pray for snow.
We didn't have enough this time.
Yeah, we have enough this time. So how long have you and your husband been married?
We just celebrated our 30th anniversary, believe it or not.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
When was your anniversary date?
It was the 8th. And actually this Orgonite pyramid was our gift to each other to commemorate. So it's here on our table. We don't have our own offices yet, so we're working on a table. So it's in the center. So,
now you told me once that you were building a tiny home.
Yes, we are currently on the Snowflake property. He is in the process of, it's going to be tiny, but there's also going to be outbuildings. So we're not going to be confined to the small space. I mean, at least that's the plan. we're flexible about things. I mean, that's the one beauty about being up here is that we have options, and we no longer really have to, we know where we want to go, but the path can be all over the place as long as we know what the end point might be. Again, might be.
I wanted to ask, are you also an artist?
In the sense of as in painting and drawing and things like that, I don't know. No, I am not. I've been learning because one of the places that I taught at was FIDM, and there was it was everything from fashion to product design and product development, and I taught in the general studies and the film department and digital media. And one of the professors there, this incredible artist, Nancy Riegelman, I would see her in the faculty lounge, and I'd look at student work and I'd say, this is incredible. She said, I could teach you how to do that. And so she let me audit some classes of hers. And I have to say, when I got out, using her methodology, I was able to draw fashion illustration type, but still get a sense of what it is to draw and proportion and shading and all that stuff. And I'd been around artists a long time. I've done web design, and I'm aware of the foundational aspects of art, but my skills were very, very basic and not practiced. So once I've been up here, I've been practicing a lot, and exponential growth a little bit every day, and suddenly that looks like a flower, or suddenly that looks like a cat.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been to the Art
Pardon?
Alliance and walked through and seen the different artists, and they use all mediums up here.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, just amazed me when I moved up here.
And inspiring to see the level of creativity and how people, what I really appreciate is how people are using the land and using the location to inspire their art. And you don't normally see that in one space. I mean, obviously we're all in the same place on Penrod, but it's been wonderful to see that. Like, oh, someone's using that, and there's a reference to whatever art rock or whatever petroglyphs, and that's really fascinating to me, inspiring to see.
What plans do you have for your future?
Oh my goodness, Kathleen, that is such a weighty, if not fraught question. Well, there's a couple things. I do know that when I moved up here, and I've been talking about intuition a lot, that I see myself as in a different chapter where I want to do something meaningful and help people do something meaningful. A part of me that is not related at all to to the art and writing aspect of this is I'm very much into health and longevity. And my husband and I, fortunately, we're on the same journey. We're on the same page. So part of this doing things that are meaningful and will help people is that I'm redoing my yoga certification. So in between writing and doing whatever, I've been teaching yoga in Lakeside. And that is something that is also meaningful because I enjoy it. And it's not teaching students and not dealing with plagiarism, which is really no fun, takes all the fun out of teaching. And helping people progress in their bodies and being more connected. That's always been part of my life path. So that life path is becoming more front and center these days. So doing that, and ultimately, I would love to have some place for, meditation, and again, for people to connect with their health, because just this my tiny little soapbox. There's, the medical industry sends you down one path, but there are other paths. So
yeah,
for many years, my husband and I have been exploring that other path to very positive. We've turned around a lot of our health issues, and we hope to be able to spread some of that wisdom that we picked up to other people. And then when it comes to writing, it really is exploring things that I've learned in my own wisdom and knowledge, and putting them in stories and touching people in a different way. If I'm not going to impact people or connect with people in that physical way and in the way yoga is,
Mhm.
then it's through intellectual, mental knowledge stimulation, if someone wants to go there with me and read my work. So that's where I'm at. So appropriately, connection. Ultimately, it's about connection. However I can make that.
Well, that is incredible. I love yoga. Not that I've done it for years, but I did it. That's the only way I could stand on my head was I
You should come to
learned.
class, Kathleen, when you're ready, when you're
Yeah,
healed from your.
yeah. I was just thinking that. But I think that's a good segue for us to draw to a close because we
Okay.
know now what your future is going to be. It's going to be to connect to the people around you and to strengthen and build them and yourself.
You put that beautifully. You synthesized that in a terrific way. Thank you, Kathleen. I
You are
really
so
appreciate
welcome, and I am so glad you've come to join us. It was a God moment.
that. Wow,
Truly,
that's means a lot. Thank you.
you're so welcome. And I can't wait to read your stories.
Okay. I look forward to reading everybody else's stories and helping however I can.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining us.